What's up, guys? Salute. The streets are buzzing. NBA draft time is here. We're less than a week away for what is going to be a big draft, hopefully for the New York Knicks to add some pieces with me. I've got a special guest, Ryan. Appreciate you, Ryan, for joining us to talk NBA draft and New York Knicks. How are you doing?
I'm good for sure. As a New Jersey and I call it tri-state area, New York, kind of local and native. I think it's very fitting, so it makes sense.
Yeah, no doubt. This draft has been called all sorts of things, and like, what's this process been like for you heading into this draft cycle?
Yeah, it's fun as always. It's wild this year. Like there are there have been like a dozen different guys in the last 6 months slated to go number one. There are 25 guys getting lottery attention now, and I think because it's a quote unquote weaker class, or there's not a ton of stars, it's uh, set up for more madness probably than usual, maybe ever. So I'm excited for draft night. I know we got one trade just happened, but with no picks involved. But I'm sure the next week will be crazy. So.
Oh, word! I missed that. What was the trade?
It happened like 5 minutes ago. It was Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso, straight up. Yeah, it's an Aussie boy, exactly. It was weird too. The Bulls got no pick comp out of it. Very strange.
That's a good pickup for OKC, man. What do you think? Everyone's trying to
Yeah,
get Caruso, and apparently they rejected a few first round picks for him.
yeah. I don't blame him. I wonder what the Bulls see. I mean, I like Josh Giddey in some way, but he was unplayable for the Thunder in the playoffs, and he's shown a little big decline. So I don't know what the Bulls are doing. I never know what they're doing.
No one knows, man. And yeah, look
Yeah,
with Giddy, I've obviously seen him up close, and I see the issues with the national team, with the shooting and all of
yep.
that. But hopefully we can address some issues for the Knicks. Let's get into it, man. We're going to go through a few things. You did a mock a couple weeks back about what you would do for each team, and we're going to go through that. And
Yeah,
then also you were part of a community mock yesterday as well, which you happened to select for the New York Knicks as well.
yeah.
You just tied to the New York Knicks, um, and we're going to go through that as well. But in terms of some workouts as well, I'm going to bring that up on screen first before we dive in,
Yep.
just so everyone knows what's happening up to this point. The New York Knicks have worked out these guys: Ryan Dunn out of Virginia, Tyler Smith out of the G League Ignite, Baylor Shireman was apparently a part of the Ryan Dunn group workout.
Hmm.
Enrique Freeman, a guy who seems to be rising up some people's boards, a sleeper. Kashad Johnson revealed, I think, in a Pacers interview that he's going to work out for the Knicks, or he has. Tristan Newton as well. Other guys on here as well. Just these guys on the screen, Ryan. What kind of stands out to you in terms of how the Knicks doing their workouts? They're very private with revealing what's
Yeah.
what's happening.
Yeah, a lot of teams are. So I would take the hoops hype list with a grain of salt. There's probably another dozen to even 20 or 30 more that they could have worked out, whether it's in their facility or elsewhere and stuff like that. And I know of a couple extra guys who aren't on here that have been there too, for sure. But it looks like they're going for wings and forwards, which makes sense. You guys have three picks within, I think, 13, 14 picks of each other in the end of the first and the early second. So I think the goal is really like maybe you can get a backup guard, one guard who can play early minutes. I think would help you guys, but it seems like they're going after a lot of wings and athletes and guys that have specifically one trait that might translate pretty well right away, like Baylor Shireman shooting, Ryan Dunn's defense, and stuff like that. But I think the goal for you guys, especially looking at who they're trying to work out, is we need people to play right away because obviously you guys are trying to win. You guys are trying to contend. So
Yeah, no, that was well put, man. In terms of the skill sets, we'll dive into the other prospects, but yeah, absolutely, there's more guys that they would have worked out. How do you see the agency connections? I think Kalel Ware is
yeah,
CAA. He doesn't seem to be on the list, but Ryan Dunn is obviously a Long Island native.
yeah. The connection is definitely there. I see some of the comments about nowhere and stuff like that. I know for a fact that the Knicks have been working out centers like Deron Holmes. They've been in contact with. I think they went to him at one point right before the combine or something like that. So, like I said, take it with a grain of salt. But the connections are definitely there. The Knicks fans know that very very well with the Brunson family. So
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, appreciate that word on Deron Holmes. He's
yeah,
he's a guy I'm pretty high on, and I think Tibbs would be as well. Um,
Oh yeah.
What about Kentucky? Justin Edwards, there was the affinity for Kentucky with Kenny Payne in the building. Justin Edwards seems to be a player available around the second round.
Yeah, he it's interesting. He didn't have his best year in college, but some guys are better suited for the NBA, and I think there's a world where he does succeed. I think it's going to take time with him. I think he needs to spend time in the G League next year for sure. And I think because the Knicks have 3 picks, they could use 38 on a guy like him if they find 2 high floor guys to use right away, because they could say, you know what, we're going to put him in Westchester for a little while. We have enough guys on the roster, because even through so many injuries, like taking 2 extra rookies, probably finding someone in free agency and trying to retain everybody should fill out the entire rotation and then some. So maybe they use pick 38 on him and send him to Westchester for a year.
Yeah, I could see that too, man. There's been a lot of talk over would the Knicks use all of their picks. I'm going to predict that they're going to use at least 2 of them, whether one in the first, one in the second. As I pull up your mock for a few weeks ago, what is your thoughts on what the Knicks would do with their 3 picks?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. A lot of people talk about stars, the Knicks to go for, you name them, Cat, PG, etc., whatever. But I don't think that those deals will revolve around picks, because it's going to take a lot more than late picks in a weak class to get that done. Obviously, you're going to need to put a fat contract in there, like Julius or someone. I think the picks would be smaller scale, whether they try to move a pick to next year's draft because they don't want to take all these picks so quick, or they're just trying to move up also. I think that's a very, very possible situation if 24 and 25 or 24 and 38 or some kind of combination of those. If they see someone starting to slip right outside the lottery, I'd say like 15-ish to 18 range is probably a prime spot for them to trade up if the situation arises.
And because of the salary situation the Knicks are in as well, I think they'll find that attractive. There'll be a good player at 38.
Right.
I feel, as we talk about the class as well, and we're going to talk about some of your sleepers as well before after we talk about some of the guys that are linked heavily the most, and yeah, just take everyone through your selections here. Ryan Dunn, 24, Baylor Shireman, 25. You dropped a great thread on Ryan Dunn. So, what is your thoughts as of the current day?
Yeah, I honestly, I think we talked about it right before. I think this is like a week or two ago, which is not a long time, but in the draft world, in June, every day feels like a week or two. But I still feel pretty strong on these 2 guys. They both might be there on the board, and they're very, very opposite players. Shireman is, I've been saying he's a great fit for the Knicks time and time again. He's played in MSG multiple times in the Big East in postseason games and stuff. He understands the big moment. He's old. He's very old. He's going to turn 24 this NBA season, but he's an unbelievable offensive player, an unbelievable shooter on the wing, which I think helps the Knicks a lot. He's more of a 2 guard in his style, but he has the size of a true wing and stuff. But there's a lot to like about him. And Ryan Dunn, I don't know if Knicks fans would love it, because you guys have had spacing issues before and you've experienced the things kind of like the Sixers have with Matisse and Ben, but not to that scale. But I don't know if I've ever evaluated such a good defensive player outside of maybe Victor and stuff. But in terms of skills and innate ability and intuition, this man is an absolute monster on the perimeter, on the interior. He's aggressive. He's not just deterring shots, but he is swarming them and catching them. I'm a huge fan of him. You mentioned I put a thread out there. I would just completely buy into the defensive ability and versatility, and just hope and pray on my development that he can be a good offensive cutter and dunker spot guy, and maybe get a little touch around the rim like Hartenstein has developed over the years. But he's awesome. So if you can put him next to a 5 who can shoot, he's even better. So I feel strongly about both of them.
Yeah, let's say he was selected. Do you see him getting minutes in his rookie season with Tibbs? I know there is some wing positions available on off the bench. Hart is undersized. OG situation. Alec Burks looks like he might leave.
Yeah, he's definitely going to get minutes right away wherever he goes. I would almost guarantee it, especially on a team like the Knicks. Like, Tibbs would love him, even if he's playing 10 minutes a game. I know you guys might have a need for a backup 5, even if he plays small ball 5 as the third 5 just for a few minutes a game. He is the type of guy that Tibbs would definitely find a way to play, because he's wildly impactful defensively. So.
Yeah, and Ryan, I've seen some shooting numbers from Dunn back in high school prior
Right.
to college. There seems to be some optimism that, the shot could become more serviceable. Like, what's your read on the potential there?
Yeah, and his EYBL tape and some high school stuff, it was there. The form looked better. It's crazy how like he takes free throws. He airballs. I think he's airballed like 7 or 8 free throws this year in college, which is it's crazy. It's actually astounding that that could even be possible with no contest at all or anything. I don't feel confident about his shooting at all. I think it could get to close to league average at best, probably, but that would mean he could be on the floor all the time and he can become a Herb Jones level player, which is really the goal for him. If he can be good enough offensively, have any form of game where he's not completely sagged off like you saw Ben Simmons in the last time he's played basketball, especially for the Sixers, then as long as he's not that, then he'll be on the floor and he'll be making plays defensively. So,
Yeah, and I mentioned Precious Achua is a free agent as well, restricted. That's kind of a spot where, Precious delivered throughout the regular season, but had some struggles against Siakam. Ryan Dunn's size. Would you say Dunn's defense is more advanced than like where Precious Achua is at right
yeah,
now?
I gotta be honest. I'd probably take Ryan Dunn's defense over 90% of the league already right now before he even plays a touch of minutes. Like I feel that strongly about his defensive size. Like if I could pull up tape and show you, like it is absolutely crazy. Anyone watching, like just go type in Ryan Dunn on Twitter, find the first video you see. It might be an airballed free throw, but there's a good chance it's probably his defensive highlights. And it's crazy the things he can do with long arms, and he defends legit fives half the time. So
Yeah, like everything I'm hearing and the fans' words as well, I feel like Tibbs would be on board, but this is kind of a dual situation, Ryan, where I think Walt Perrin, the assistant GM of the New York Knicks, will have the most influence. Tibbs will probably have some input as well, but the Knicks have got a couple of picks, so Tibbs might just put his fist on the table and say, get me one guy that,
yeah,
that I can rock with, and you choose your sleepers or whoever.
yeah.
Now let's talk about the community mock that you
Yeah.
dropped yesterday, right? That was dropped. You were part of that as well. So this is more of an updated situation,
This
guys.
was
And I'm
a
gonna,
shoot, yeah.
yep, gonna pull this up right now.
It was real interesting. It was the community mocks are fun because there's one person for each team for anyone who doesn't know. So all types of guys can fall in the draft and in those and get undrafted and stuff. So it's fun to see what could happen, which is a very realistic situation. So
Yeah, definitely. Um, this was tweeted out by Lucas. So let me, right here we go. So coming in at 24 was Keyshawn George, 25. Terrence Shannon Jr., who
Mhm.
has now started to gather a bit more buzz now that the off court situation has been sorted. Take us through your picks here as well as you got to the board with 24.
Yeah, I forget exact. I think I was eyeing up Tristan De Silva at first, who went right before us. But Keyshawn George is someone that I feel very strongly about personally. He's pretty unproven, but he is a late bloomer in terms of physically. So he's a big two guard, but he played one guard his entire life. So he's like 6'8", 6'10" wingspan. He grew up playing one guard because he was small and didn't hit that late growth spurt till very late in high school, and he still was growing the last couple of years in college, but him at 24 and 25, I wanted two guys who can play right away in some level, and I basically just went complete opposites. So Terren Shannon is old. He's like basically 24 years old. He's old. He's proven. He scored 22 a game in college, and he's wildly athletic, and he gets to the rack like in an absolute blur. And it kind of reminds me of RJ Barrett, actually, a little bit. Lefty, southpaw, too, which in a good way I say that. And then Keyshawn George is the exact opposite. He's younger. He's unproven. He has a great 3-point shot on him, but they both are going to play on the wing a little bit. So I kind of wanted to balance out those picks. There were other guys there like Jacoby Walter and Jared McCain even still on the board. It's hard to the way they're set up in the community mocks to kind of realize everyone who's available. But still, I like the picks I had, and I think you're going to get use out of probably Shannon more than George right away, but both of them long term for sure. So.
Yeah, and how do you balance this, Ryan, with like guys that you really want and you would take at that number versus guys that you think the Knicks would be interested in? Are you factoring both of those things?
Yeah, in a way, for sure. I try to go more the former of like of who I think makes sense for the Knicks instead of who I think the Knicks would take. There's a little bit of both, though. Like I said, for sure. And uh, realistically, like we're just a bunch of people in our houses and basements, like people say on their couches that are doing the draft together. But That's basically what the draft night, on the actual draft night, like shit's gonna happen where people are gonna fall and all sorts of crazy things will happen. But I tried to balance it as best as I could. I think Shannon makes sense for the Knicks a lot. He's another guy who's very well accustomed to big moments and living up to it and kind of shining in the big lights and stuff like that. He's played at MSG a bunch of times also. He's not scared of any moment. So I like that out of him a lot. So
Yeah, we've got a lot of friends of the show and viewers that are high on TSJ. He's aggressive. I love that. Obviously, there's some talk that he needs to sort of open his vision up and sort of be a little bit more available to move the rock and not attack all the time. But yeah, I still love that in a player. I think that could be scaled back. It's the other way that's harder to usually get, which we see now. Frank Ntilikina is now signed a deal in Europe. That yeah, Frank had tools, but he didn't have the aggression. You
yeah.
just didn't. You just couldn't take the big stage. As a New York Knicks player, you need to be able to perform on the big stage.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. I don't think we talked before going on obviously about MSG and the environment of New York and everything, and it's a legit thing. And like JB is accustomed to it. He's not no stranger to New York, and even Nova winning championships, and half the team is from Nova. It feels like at this point, so they all kind of get that. But there's definitely a factor of that where if you go play Indiana, maybe a bad example because of the basketball culture there, but if you go play in Utah or somewhere else, like there is more of a level of patience in the fans and things. So it's the truth.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on RJ Barrett? I think out of all the things I'm high on with RJ Barrett was the fact that he came in from day one, and obviously he was ready. Father, the upbringing, the experience at Duke, but he handled New York like you want a rookie to handle the Mecca. You know, uh, Porzingis did fairly well, but he sort of let the limelight get to him a bit. But I think RJ Barrett just stayed cool through the whole Knicks tenure, and I think it was just a basketball fit in the end. But off court and the professionalism was perfect, with RJ.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot to like about. I've never been a big RJ truther, but it's impossible to deny the production he's put up, and especially the improvement on the three ball. Something that I never thought evaluating him in college and watching him play in Duke and coming out in his first couple of years. I never thought that would get to any level that it has gotten to, and pretty decent consistency. So I give him a ton of credit there.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this draft is a lot more fun as people are dubbing it. In terms of it's all beauty in the eye of the beholder, and players that you hire on. Some people may not be. Who are some guys that you feel would fit really well with the New York Knicks that we haven't discussed yet? And also maybe some sleepers for the second round.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about a few of the guys already, like Shireman and Shannon and stuff like that. I think the bigs are ones to watch in case, God forbid, they don't feel confident about Hartenstein. Even if they do, honestly, with Mitch's health issues in history and the need for a third big on the roster, like you guys saw in the playoffs. So the bigs that'll probably be there, Khalil Ware will probably be gone by then. Actually, he'll definitely be gone by then. Deron Holmes from Dayton is one I like. Don't know if he's going to be there. Eve Misi is actually someone I got in that community mock at 38. He won't be there at 38. It would have to be 24, 25 to take him. And even Zack Eedi, I don't think he's going to be on the board either, but one of those four bigs should be available. So I think those are guys to watch. Then when you look at other forwards, there's guys like Jalen Tyson. I mentioned Tristan Da Silva before from Colorado, but Jalen Tyson from Cal is another one of those kind of Swiss Army knife forwards and a little bit of a do-it-all high floor. And so is Harrison Ingram at North Carolina. So I like a lot of those guys to watch out for.
Yeah, I love those guys too, man. And in terms of some sleepers, I know you've got Bobby Clintman in the second round. I'm high on Bobby Clintman. I'd love to get your thoughts on him. And maybe let's just go through positionally, starting with some guards.
Yeah.
I got some people high on Reese Beekman. There's also, as we talked about, there's the guy that just worked out as well the other day. Let me pull up his name. Yeah, what is your thoughts on Bobby Clintman first?
No, I like Bobby too, and everyone thought he was going to stick in the draft last year, but something was kind of behind the scenes, obviously in this stock that they didn't like. But he's another one of those forwards, and I think at 38 makes a lot of sense for sure. I mentioned Jalen Tyson, Harrison Ingram, where if you go guard and big or something at 24, 25, I think he's definitely one of those players that can do a little bit of it all, and I think has underrated aspect to him is his handling ability and kind of versatility and stuff that which was why he was getting top 20, 25 love at one point last year before he withdrew. But the guards, Reese Beekman, love Reese Beekman. He's a very Tibbs player because he's not a bad offensive player by much, but defensively he is just an absolute hound. But who I like more is Jamal Shed. He at Houston, there's something about Jamal Shed that is just unbelievable. Like the Houston guys, Quentin Grimes, you guys know, Marcus Sasser, who's been in the league for 1 year, but I love him too. The Houston guys stick for good reason. Like what they go through in their program and the types of players that they breed out are unbelievable. He's undersized, but he's a great passer. He's a decent scorer, and he's an unbelievable defender. So I pick 38. I love a guy like that for sure.
Yeah, Houston guys have come into the Knicks and kind of outplayed some of their projections with
Yeah.
Damian Dotson and Quentin Grimes. But yeah, the point guards I was thinking of was Tristan Newton.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts on him? Reese Beekman as well.
Yeah. I am higher on Tristan Newton than most people. I don't think he's going to be Andrew Nemhard-esque so quickly, or if he ever will get to that level. But I think this is a guy that is a great playmaker and facilitator of a very, very successful college team for 2 years, but really this 1 year that he was kind of running the entire show. He's so poised. His passing velocity and decision making is next level. And I think when you guys look for a backup guard, like obviously you have JB and Deuce, but you're going to need someone else to kind of help run the show, even if it's for 10 minutes a game. I think Newton could definitely be one of those guys. And I keep mentioning like guys that play in MSG and understand it. And I wouldn't undervalue that, especially for UConn guys, because UConn, they call it Stores South, which is Stores, Connecticut, where the school is. And they play at MSG all the time. So it's basically like their second home court. So Tristan Newton, like I said it many times, but that's literally home for him. So those lights, he's not going to shy away from that. And I wouldn't hate that at all at 38.
Sneaky great pick because Tibbs and the organization. You mentioned ready-made guys. It's more just mindset. The Knicks love a dog, a player that, like you said, is not going to be shook. Quickly came in full of confidence. Deuce McBride knew what he could do, although it took time for the coaching staff to put that trust in him. With that said, I agree. What do you think about some of the other point guards linked? Bub Carrington, Tyler Kolek. Do you think those guys will be gone by the time the Knicks pick?
Yeah, I think Bub should definitely be gone. There's a lot of upside and versatility in his offensive game and scoring that I think teams like Toronto and Orlando at 18, 19, even above that in the late lottery, someone would probably snatch him up. And Kolek could be there, but I know the Suns love him at 22, so it might be a little bit of a heartbreak, but he's another Big East player, so he understands Madison Square Garden. He's been playing there for 4 years. He loves the big moments, so I think he's someone that could really fit in a Knicks uniform. I just don't think he's going to be there because I think the Suns are going to pop him at 22 if he's on the board.
Yeah, we mentioned jumbo wings as well as we move from guards to wings. Let us know if there's any questions you want us to answer as well. Ryan's, it's a pleasure to have him on and join us and generous with his time. I appreciate the chat for buzzing with us right now, talking NBA draft. Mm-hmm. Smash that like button. Buzzer's come up with a great question with the super chat. Appreciate you, Buzzer Beater. Ryan, which selections other than Sarr do you feel are a lock?
It's a good question. I'm a Hawks fan, for anyone who doesn't know. So I don't think Sarr's a lock at all at 1. He'd be a lock for top 2. If he's not there, he doesn't go at 1. The Wizards will snatch him up at 2. I don't think there's many locks other than ranges. Like I know that Reed Shepherd probably won't fall out of the top 6. I don't think Dalton Connect is going to fall out of the top 8, maybe 9 at the worst. And Donovan Clingan at the top. I think he's someone that won't go past. If he doesn't go 1 or 2, someone will trade up for him at 3, 4, or 5 range or something like that because he's a lot of those teams after 2 don't need a big. So the Grizzlies, the Bulls, those teams might be looking to trade up to go get him. And then there's other guys. I know Zack Eedi potentially has some promise in the lottery. And I know Terren Holmes has a first-round promise. Take that for what you will. But that probably means he's going to go top 20. So,
yeah, great question as well. And I'll tell you my lock, Bronny James to the Lakers. that might be the closest lock we get, fam, as well as the chat. It was, giving some thoughts on Bronny. I'll ask you that later. But let's talk about some guys that people haven't talked about for a minute. Malavi Leons, he's a guy who's worked out for the Knicks as well. Do you know much about him? What are your thoughts on Malavi, the jumbo wing, power forward?
Yeah, he's actually someone who I was talking to someone last week about him, and I think a lot of the international guys that come up later in the process, like the jumbo wing, is like the problem is there's a ton of them, and when you're old like that, I think he's also 24, or if I'm not wrong out of Bradley, but he's another guy that could be interesting with the. You mentioned Enrique Freeman, that's who it was before, where I think those kind of guys get very very underrated, and we see them become steals in a sense, like the Miami Heat kind of turned them out of nothing half the time. But I think those guys like Jalen Wells, there's just like a whole entire versatility to their game to be able to do a little bit of everything, whatever you call it, master of none, kind of good in all categories and Swiss Army knife. So I think those are guys that are interesting, and I would be remiss, I'd be lying if I said I watched him all year long, because only later in the process I did, because I was like, am I missing something? Like, and because the production numbers don't really pop off for some of these guys, but you have to watch them on film for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. And another young wing, Pacome Dadier, is starting to get major buzz now. Where do you kind of have him?
He's interesting too. Like let me tell you something. There's something going on in France. That's what's for damn sure. I don't know what they're doing, but the wings and the lengthy athletes, it's crazy between Salon and Risache and obviously Victor and then Sar. Like it's absolutely wild. But Dadier is good. I like his shooting ability. He has more upside in other parts of the game than guys like Salon, but I don't think he's well polished physically and in the shooting like Salon might be, and that's why he's not that high in this draft yet. But the upside is there. I think he'll take some time for sure, though, especially in the physicality aspect. And I think teams like Toronto at 31, Utah at 32. I don't hate it for the Knicks. Like we said, you have 3 picks. So if you want to invest in one to either play in Europe for a little while or play two-way in Westchester and stuff, I think that makes sense. So I wouldn't hate it. He's very, very interesting. And there is an aspect to me that thinks if he didn't play internationally, that people would know him more. And I said this about Salon on a podcast a couple weeks ago. I was like, man, Tajon Salam would have destroyed college basketball. Like he would have destroyed people big time. Like with he's so physical, he's big, he can shoot. So I would like to say the same for every international prospect, but it's hard to say what if for everyone, you know. So
Yeah, I think the game's just got a bigger reach now, man. That's just my take on it. With France, they're probably just younger kids growing up, with French prospects to look up to as role models. We know they're a kind of a soccer nation more than
yeah.
basketball, but that's quickly changing, man. And as we go through some of the other wings, Melvin Ajinça, what are your thoughts on him, and also Jaylen Bridges?
Yeah, two more guys who have probably been both. I think both slept on throughout the process. Bridges, I've seen in person a couple of times, and I had the chance to go down to Waco, Texas, and Baylor, and talk to him a little bit also. But he is someone I think could be a real sleeper, and I think there are teams. I think it's like the early 40s range that I really look out for. Miami and Philly are in that range that could use him right away, especially a team like Philly who they might have nobody on their roster in a few weeks once free agency gets going. So they need guys to be able to play and play early. Bridges is just he's a high level 3-and-D wing and forward, and that's what you're going to get out of him. But if you're taking him in the second round, if he can give you any minutes on the NBA floor, I think that's something to be excited about. So
There's an international wing, which is a little bit lower down than Topic, is Duricic, Nikola Duric from Mega.
yeah.
Um, what's your take on him?
Yeah, Nikola's interesting. Another Serbian Nikola. What else is new, right? But he's good. He's very very crafty. He's been through the draft process. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 times. I know he was in it last year, and he almost withdrew again this year. Someone said, but it was pretty sure he was staying in. He's very very crafty. He's got solid size. Not like a crazy athlete or anything, but he's someone who I think will never have wild production in the NBA. But it would not surprise me at all if he kind of gets into a rotation pretty early on. He is older. He understands the game very well. He's been playing professionally for a few years at this point, so he's pretty well polished.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you, man. And I think there's going to be a huge shake up with this order. That the board we mentioned, there's going to be guys that rank players 20 spots higher than other teams, and fit could be the biggest factor in this one.
Mhm.
As we shift towards some bigs, a guy who's not getting as much buzz, but a Dem Boner, center out of UCLA. I think the Knicks really do need to look at a big, possibly with that second round pick. How do you see a Dem Boners fit?
Yeah, 38 makes about sense for where he'll probably be start being considered right when the second round pops. But he's good. He's a little bit undersized, which I don't love, but he competes physically and athletically with anybody. He can defend pretty well. So I think I'm not comparing him to Precious Achua as a player, but in terms of what he can offer in the minutes he can play, I think if you're looking for a guy like that, you could probably throw him in every now and then and hope for that. But he was super talented and high ranked coming out of high school, and he spent an extra year at UCLA. And it hasn't gone unbelievable, especially for UCLA as a team last year, which didn't really help. But I like him. I like his skill set a decent amount. I think he's got a decent floor in the NBA to be rotational. I just don't love the ceiling. But again, we mentioned before, I picked 38. Like, you're really not looking for a ceiling. Like, you're not banking on getting another Jalen Brunson level value out of a guy who goes in the 30s because that's unrealistic. So.
Yeah. If there is a big ideal big for the second round, like best case scenario, would it be like Missy, or who would that be for the first and second round?
Yeah, it's tough. I think a lot of them are going to go in the first. I think Tyler Smith is one to watch out. I know the Knicks worked him out. He's a true stretch five. He's like 6'8", 6'9", 7'1" wingspan, but he's a freak athlete. Reminds me a lot of John Collins, how he can play the five. He's just not super big, and it's going to take a little bit of polish defensively and just kind of awareness and IQ things. But he's a freakish athlete, and I think I talk about all the bigs in the first round. Someone has to fall to pick 30 and beyond. Like, someone's gonna fall. I just don't know who it is. Could be Kyle Filipowski also. I think he's one to watch for Duke for the Knicks also. He's again not a true four, not a true five, a little bit of a tweener. Don't know how to take that, but I think because of that he might fall a little bit. But those guys are definitely ones to watch for sure.
Yeah, Tyler Smith's one that has been worked out as I pull up the workouts once again, and there's probably a lot more. And let's say Kalel Ware or Zack Eedi is on the board for the New York Knicks, and they're looking at a big for one of those first round picks. Do you think could you see the Knicks taking Eedi, Kalel Ware over him?
Yeah, 100%. I think if both of them are on the board, they'd go Khalil Ware, especially for the value alone. There's something about Zach Eady. I can't see him wearing a Knicks jersey. It's nothing about his style at all. I mean, I guess it is about that. I just can't see him wearing that jersey. Although it'd be interesting because the Knicks are annoying to play against, and having Zach Eady would just make him so much more annoying. But I don't know what it is. Can't see
The rebounds Tibbs would just fall in love with, I guess. And
it.
look, the Knicks are one of the slowest teams, Ryan, in the league, if
Yeah.
not the slowest. So he probably would fit ideally. But look, if they lose out on iHeart and they have a really good inkling that there's a real chance we're going to lose iHeart,
Mm.
then I think they're really going to take Kalel Ware or, yeah, Missy or Edie. Filipowski you mentioned as well. I'm not so high on Filipowski for the Knicks, but I could see him working well with a
Yep.
team like, OKC, the Bulls, even the Hawks.
Yeah, he could. He's just a little more skilled than most bigs. Maybe not Deron Holmes per se, but on the ball he's comfortable. He can stretch it. He can pass it pretty well. I just don't know if athletically and physically he's going to be able to compete with fives, and I don't think he can keep up with fours either. So
Yeah. What are your thoughts on two other sort of bigs, Jonathan Mogbo and Ulrich Shomshi?
yeah.
Ulrich out of NBA Academy Africa.
Yeah, Ulrich's interesting. I mean, that's a complete upside play. He's wildly raw, but he's the youngest prospect in the class. So I think you're looking at a draft and stash, or at least a year or 2 years in the G League, Westchester, if he was to go there. Mobo, I like. I comp him to Kenneth Reed because he's smaller, but he's a freaking beast on the boards and inside. He is an unbelievably efficient scorer at the rack, and he competes against anyone bigger than him. It doesn't really matter. He's very strong. He's a really good passer too, which is a very underrated aspect of his game. So I don't know, you classify him as a 4 or 5, however you put him on the floor. It's tough to fit him into the right rotations and lineups because even in college, he literally never shot. I think he shot 2 threes his entire career in 3 or 4 years. But he's gotten better every single year from JUCO to Missouri State, then to San Francisco. He's got a very interesting profile, so I think he's worth a look for sure.
Yeah, I'm fans of Ulrich. And in terms of super chat coming through from Buzzer Beater,
Yeah.
appreciate you. Baycott, DJ Burns, team's
Yeah.
interested.
Yeah, these are two college guys, NC and NC State. They went at it for multiple years. Armando, I know very well personally, and I think people sleep on him a little bit in terms of what he can offer from an undrafted free agent contract. Same with DJ, honestly. Like, why not take an undrafted deal on DJ, get him into summer league, and kind of see how it goes? But Armando and DJ, but Armando has been playing at such a high level for 5 years, really 4 or 5 years in college. And I think there's something to be said about that. And like I said, whether it's going to be in the G League or not, I think it's worth giving him a chance in summer league. And I know he's a good dude. He's been trying to work out his body to get slimmer, to get more mobile, and we know he's strong and compete inside and on the glass. So
that one. In terms of the two-way spots, Ryan, the Knicks have got two-way spots available that I think they'll look to fill, maybe with some of these undrafted dudes. And there is intel where the Knicks look at local products as well. We talked about the Ryan Dunns of the world and guys that are a little bit more local. And in terms of the workouts, right, I wanted to ask you about these workouts, right? We hear group workouts, we hear individual, there's pro days.
yeah,
What's your best way of deciphering how these workouts go with pro teams?
it's tough. There's really no way to tell because you don't know what goes on inside the building, obviously, and we're not there, but we do our best. And it's kind of sad that a lot of the agencies and representations will manipulate the system a little bit. So there are guys like I'm not going to call. I don't want to call out certain prospects, but they purposely won't go to workouts or they won't do anything with certain teams or they just will keep everything enclosed and mysterious. They won't even talk to the media, and so I think everything with a grain of salt. And there, even group workouts, I think, are the best because you get a group of guys who you're considering at the same spot to just literally go up against each other to try to see who's going to kind of come out of it almost. But when certain agencies like Ryan Dunn's a good example, and Jamal Shed and Reese Beekman, and I don't hate them because if I'm an agent and I represent someone and they're like, yeah, we're going to bring you in with Ryan Dunn and Jamal Shed, I'm like, we actually are not available that day. I lied. We're actually not good. We're going to have to do next week. Because why would you want to go up against guys like that? It's just going to make you look bad because literally every player in the draft doesn't want to go up against guys like that in a private workout one-on-one. So I think you take that all with a grain of salt, but that's the only time that these teams get to spend with the prospects like personally and one-on-one and really get to know them. So they have to kind of value that.
Yeah, that's why I was hoping you'd take it because that could swing the opinion of a team in their favor. The confidence. Let's say I'm a dog and I want to go up against anybody in a group workout, bring it on, versus guys that are trying to shy away and protect their stock. And look, I get it professionally, like you said. You're going to protect your client, but these group workouts. I heard there was a big workout with some of the bigger guys in the lottery end. There was there was the three-way workout. Did you hear anything about that?
So yeah, excuse me. Did you say who that was? The three of them?
One of them was Eedi, I know for
Mm.
sure. Baylor Shireman was part of it as well, I believe. And let me pull up.
Was that? I think it might have been Ryan Dunn also. I don't really remember, but
Yeah, I'm pretty
um,
sure Dunn was a part of one as well.
yeah, like Sharman and Dunn is a great example. It's interesting to see one who's so offensive and one who's so defensive. They're basically complete opposites. Go up against each other on that side of the ball and on the other side of the ball to kind of see what they can offer. Baylor defensively, Ryan Dunn offensively against one another. Who weakness against weakness, strength against strength. I think the Knicks probably strategically try to bring in those kinds of guys together in purposely on that. And Zack Eedi, I imagine they had some other couple of bigs that could really bang bodies down low also to see how that would trouble him too.
Yeah, I like the idea of coordinating the
Yeah.
fits with each other client as well. Um, Jean-Marc, salute. Great question on Terren Shannon Jr. We talked a little bit about him, but just your thoughts over now that the pathway is clear for him, and you've mocked him, to the Knicks as well. TSJ, take us behind the curtain a little bit about him now.
Yeah. He's I can't speak to the legal aspect more than he's not guilty and innocent. I invested much in the case. I read everything about it. Everything that how it ended in the right way. So good for him now that he is clear from that. But Terrence, I mean, he is as athletic as you are going to find as someone, especially at his size, 6'7", 6'8". He's aggressive. He gets straight to the rack. He's going for your head. He's trying to take your top off, going up, create highlight plays. I said RJ Barrett before, southpaw wing that likes to drive and can create a little bit and really likes to get downhill. So a young RJ Barrett is kind of what I like to comp him to. And I think that's, like I said, it's a very, very good thing, especially as a guy who you don't expect to be a consistent starter for 10 years, obviously, or 5, 10 years, but you just want him to be impactful off the bench and in your rotation. And 100% he can get there because his shot has improved for sure. And his alpha mentality on the floor of give me the ball, I'm going to get us a bucket down low, and he can draw fouls very easily and finish at the rack, finish through traffic. There's a lot to like for sure.
Yeah, I think the confidence in him will have a lot of teams really keen, and I kind of look at it, maybe not player comp, but the attitude that Alonzo Trier came in
Oh yeah,
to the league with the New York Knicks. Like game one, he just took John Collins' head off, I think,
yeah,
and you probably remember that
oh yeah.
that play, and he just took it to the rack. I mean, head down. That's kind of the talk on TSJ. Buzzer's asking, Terren Holmes, is he good or another Frank Kaminsky?
Oh man, Frank the Tank was such a good college player. I don't want to do him like that, but it's true. I think Duran's got much better versatility offensively and the ability to be on ball and a really good playmaker and playmake out of the post. And he's gotten much better as a handler. Also, he can definitely shoot it too, but so could Frank. I guess that's the floor, obviously, for Terren Holmes, but the ceiling is much higher than I think Kaminsky's ever was, and I think there was always a lot of doubt that he was going to succeed in the league out of college, but. I like Terren Holmes' versatility a lot more. I think the shooting is real. I think the shot blocking is good. Even though Terren is a little smaller than Frank is for sure, and a little more, how do I say this? I guess like well-bodied and he's just more fit.
Yeah,
So I
athletic.
like that a lot about him.
Yeah, I think he's more athletic and just a more sound two-way player, I think, over Frank as well. But yeah, great question as well, guys. We'll be getting ready to wrap this thing up, so just get your final questions in as well as we're buzzing with Ryan, and I'm really looking forward to this draft class. Alan's question about Jarrett Culver working out for the Knicks in that free agent minicamp. Yeah, man, there hasn't been many other players leaked that was a part of that workout. So I will let you know if we hear any more, but I haven't heard any more veterans that were a part of that. And I think, as Ryan alluded to earlier, the Knicks are obviously in contention. They're trying to add as many players that are going to help right now. And I like your picks, in terms of the community mock. The Ryan Dunn one in your original one, that's the safe pick that people are going with right now. Um, it's tough to predict because sometimes they go one way and then they lead you to believe that's the pick, and then it doesn't happen. So, I mean, what's your prediction for draft night just in general? Like, do you just think it's going to be a lot of chaos?
Yeah, and I think splitting out the first round on day one and second round on day two will add for more chaos on day two because the second round picks are the ones that get traded the most. So it kind of gives every team an extra day to be like, okay, we addressed this or we didn't address this, and we want to do this in the second round. Let's take the next whatever 12 hours, 20 hours to go get us a pick here too, so we can do that. And so the second day will be much more calculated instead of just I need a second round pick. I need a second round pick, whatever, and kind of chaos like that. But it'll be fun because guys are going to slip and fall that teams didn't ever expect because this draft is kind of all over the place. So it'll be a lot of fun.
No doubt, no doubt. And last one from me, man. What's the one thing that you're watching the closest? Like whether it's what the Hawks do, what OKC do. Like what's one situation you're watching the closest for draft night?
Yeah, well, the Hawks is I don't know what to think. I'm definitely watching them the most, not only because of my team, because they're number one. They've considered trading it. They've considered three different prospects, and I think the Spurs too. As the Spurs try to build around Wemby and start to make playoff push, hopefully in this next year or maybe even after that, with picks 4 and 8 and an early second, are they going to try to trade any of them? Are they going to try to package to go up to one and get Sar also or someone or Reese Shea if they like him? I'm very interested to see what the Spurs do too.
Yeah, as Buzzer asking your plans with Trey, and I'll just throw in, the Knicks are linked to DeAndre Hunter, perhaps Adrian Griffin. Like, could you see the Knicks doing some deals? We'll give you Bogdanovich and maybe one of the firsts.
We already
Would you
have a
take?
Bogdanovich. I don't know if you can have more than one Bogdanovich on a team at a time. I don't know if there's a rule against that. But I would take one of the first because we only have pick one. So I would gladly take a first for DeAndre. I actually like Dre a lot, but I would gladly take it for him. Trey ain't going anywhere. Although he did put out a cryptic tweet today because what else is new? He does it all the time. But I think the ideal thing is you keep your best player and superstar and one of the best guards in franchise history on your team. Just keep him because he's 25. You move DeJounte, you move Capella, and you try to fill out with younger pieces that fit better.
And maybe DeJounte Murray, is he for sale? Could we entertain a deal there?
If I was the Hawks, I would say he's for sale for a very healthy package. I'd want a first this year. I'd want a 2025 first for sure because it's a very, very strong class. And then I'd probably want another young player and like a second or something like that.
I think the Knicks might look at that. Really, a backcourt mate for Jalen Brunson, a
Yeah.
guy who plays both ways. Yeah, this has been fun, Ryan. Appreciate your time, and if we've got time, maybe we'll try to tee something up next week. We'll see how it plays out. But everyone, give Ryan a follow on Twitter. I'll put his handle in the description, in the comment section as well. And let's pray for a good night for the New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me on for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks everyone for their questions as well. We'll be back on Sunday night, ladies and gentlemen, with another guest talking NBA draft, New York Knicks. Enjoy the rest of your night. Peace.